Well, good afternoon, coasters. And hey, hasn't the weather come right today? Got up this morning, I thought, didn't look too good. Now, at yesterday's council meeting, it was resolved to approve the annual plan going out for public consultation with a zero rate increase, and that is subject to submissions being heard. A pretty good meeting, quite normal really. Now, government today announced the extension of the national state of emergency for a further 7 days, and it's going to be reviewed in 7 days' time. When it was extended last week, I commented that I was disappointed. Today, my comment remains the same. It's a move that takes day-to-day control away from the people of New Zealand, as government continues to move for more government control over most aspects of our life. I'm going to tell you, I'm not comfortable with that. Now, council's elected as part of our age-old local democracy, which we must never lose. And making decisions locally is a way of life. Let's not get it eroded. Let's not let it be eroded. Now, government has announced that it will go to Parliament in June to set aside the RMA for both private and public projects that meet a set establishment criteria. On the face of it, that's a really good move, in that it addresses the problem that government had with the PGF fund, where they were unable to spend more than 5% of the amount allocated on the coast due to the RMA process and consenting frustrations that actually we deal with every day. We are told this will allow projects to get the approval of the Minister of the Environment and then go to a new panel which will be established, and then hopefully go to construction more quickly than the present system. Not so sure about that. No doubt the new panel will be Forest and Bird, New Zealand Mountain Clubs, and those with a green agenda, so you can imagine how rapid this will work. Now, here's the catch. I've searched the net to try and find any country in the world that has used its Environment Ministry to have the right of veto of private and public projects, which is what is proposed, as Minister Parker, his Associate Ministers Sage and Mahuta will have complete power to stop any project going to the committee. When you look at it, the Waiutu project was vetoed by Minister Parker. Up to 50 jobs during construction, privately funded. The road access agreement for the Tukua mine was vetoed by Minister Sage. 65 jobs, private funded, not government funded. The road access between Stockton and Denniston to allow the development of the Escarpment mine. 60 jobs stopped by Minister Sage. Private investment. There's been nil progress on the evaluation of stewardship land. Minister of Conservation Sage. The changes to the whitebait regulations that we're all concerned about. Minister Sage. The increased frustration from gold miners seeking dock approvals and access to stewardship land. Minister Sage. I can go on, but these are the proposed gatekeepers. You know, you don't take your watch to a plumber to get repaired. So I ask, where is the Minister of Economic Development, Minister Tyford, in relation to this process? Where is Minister Shane Jones? Important player. Where is the Parliamentary Under-Secretary for Economic Development, Fletcher Tabuti? Don't know. How can an economic recovery plan be handled by a group focused on the environment rather than the economy and the jobs needed to fund environmental protection? It's where the money comes from. We've been in the hands of the Ministry of Health now for 40 days. And blow me down, they're going to pass it to the Ministry of the Environment. Coasters, we're all proud of our history and the democracy based around electing our representatives for councils and to go to Parliament. We need to consider how government has been able to remove the rights and freedoms of New Zealanders while they pursue their own view of a new political basis for our country. Every piece of legislation that has been put forward has reduced the rights of New Zealanders, but it must go through Parliament. Every piece so far has had the full support of Labour, the Greens and New Zealand First, because without it, it wouldn't pass. Now it tells me, or I ask the question, are they all pursuing the same agenda? We've got no effective opposition. No effective opposition. They're there to challenge the changes that are being proposed. They're there to fight when they can see that our economy is beginning to crumble. Well, where are they? The only MP that seems to be effective and questioning is ex-David Seymour. A lonely voice indeed. A sole voice. When a poll is held in relation to COVID-19, if you're 65 or over, it's not going to worry you about the time or the extension of isolation. If you're a beneficiary, it's not going to worry you. Now that leaves the worker bees, the small businesses, where their numbers are shrinking due to growing unemployment. As their ability to provide funding from taxation for those that are not working is exhausted day by day, the day will come when the tap is turned down or is turned off, as occurred in Greece. Now, who's affected by extending lockdowns? It's small business. They often have a 10% net profit. Now, we've had 40 days of lockdown and they need to work for 400 days to get back to ground zero. Now, with those figures, we've taken into account the positive of the wage subsidy against the negative of decreased sales. And if you extend the lockdowns for a further 20 days, then it's going to take 600 days to get back to ground zero, nearly 2 years. Every day is critical. Now, like some, I seriously think some of this has been a grand overreaction. But I guess it depends where you live and who you are. I could be wrong, and it could end up becoming a lot worse than I think if more waves come. But politicians, they're fixated on not being blamed after the fact for something that someone might argue they could have prevented by doing something. For instance, they shut down our mining operations on the coast. Now, when you think about it just for a minute, shutting down a mine site is pretty ridiculous. Work sites are in remote areas, away from any population. The workers do not even need to come into close contact with one another on the job. They work with separate pieces of equipment and have radio contact during work hours between vehicles and equipment. They could literally have run a mine site with no physical contact between personnel within 10 metres. You would think at some point the government would have preferred the mining sector to be working rather than not. Every job counts in this economy, especially where we can show with high confidence that there's absolutely no danger to spreading any virus on our work sites. There's no rationality at all. But not only are politicians not thinking rationally, they do not even want to be seen or recorded thinking rationally. It's all about virtue signalling and grandstanding for the public. And so they would prefer to cause an economic depression than to take a breath and use a bit of common sense. Now, as always, I'm always interested in your thoughts. And I'll catch you later.